All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Sports Talk 1240, right here on a beautiful September night, September 23rd, 2018. It is 8 o'clock, and I am here. I'm your host, Rob Cramer. I'll be taking you through the first hour up until 9 p.m. when our good friend Dr. Rob Fried will take over, and we're going to be talking sports. If you'd like to know the schedule for Sports Talk 1240 and all the other hosts that host in this network of programs, you can check us out on sportstalk1240.com. You can check us out on Facebook and give us a like, and you can follow us on Twitter at SportsTalk1240 for everything and all your needs on Sports Talk 1240. You can follow me at Twitter. My Twitter is at Cramer New York. It's my last name, Cramerny, and thank you for the follow if you do so. Give us a call. We'll be taking calls later tonight, though. Probably the last 15 minutes of the program if you want to call in. The number is 516-623-1240. That's 516-623-1240. Well, thank you for joining me here on this beautiful night. And as the seasons start to turn from summer to fall, we really see autumn is in the air. And if autumn is in the air, that means football is in the air, and baseball postseason is coming around the corner. And one of the teams in New York, believe it or not, actually has a postseason future ahead of them. And that will be the 2018 New York Yankees. The Yankees lost today 6-3 to Baltimore. Tough loss. You know, they're going for the sweep. You want to put some distance between yourself and the number 2 team in the wild card hunt, the Oakland A's, who were losing late today. I believe they ended up losing that game. So I'll double check on that for you right now. But as a matter of fact, the Yankees, either way, they're going to be ahead in the loss column, no doubt about it, as the Yankees only have 61 losses. And let's see, Minnesota. So I saw Minnesota ended up winning 5-1 today. So the Athletics sit at 62 losses. So, that's pretty much a good thing for the Yankees. They didn't lose any ground today. That's what you need. They're still one up in the loss column. And, when you look at the finale today, you saw a gutty performance from J.A. Happ. And I say gutty because, normally you wouldn't call a 5-inning, 1-run performance against a 110-loss team as gutty, but he didn't have his best stuff out there today. He gutted his way through 5 innings, and the Yankee bullpen just folded after that. There's pretty much no other way to put it outside of that, as A.J. Cole came in and got smacked immediately upon getting put in. He allowed 3 runs, didn't record an out. After that, Canley and Sessa really couldn't do anything either. And the one good thing about this weekend, though, is that the Yankees did clinch a playoff berth. And that's something that we've been anticipating for quite some time here in New York. Everybody knew it was just a matter of time until the Yankees squared that away. But, we have a pivotal week here for the Yankees, one way or the other. Even though they clinched the playoff spot, like I said, they do have to, playoff positioning is going to be huge here. Is the game next Wednesday, I believe. I believe it's next Wednesday. The Yankees will be playing the A's. One way or another, we know that's the case. The question is it going to be in the Bronx, or is it going to be at the Oakland Coliseum on the West Coast? Now, to be honest, I think you really, we've seen both sides of home field in this playoff game. Pittsburgh hosted it like 3 years in a row and didn't win any of them. Actually, I think they won the first one and lost the next 2. But, other than that, the Yankees lost the home. They had the 1-game playoff against Houston in 2015. They lost that game when Dallas Keuchel pitched. The Mets lost in 2016 when they had the home field advantage, and Madison Bumgarner sent them home. And this the next week is really going to mean something, though, because you do want that game. And as I said, I'm not sure if I said it here on my podcast, but the Coffee with Kramer podcast, by the way, which you can subscribe on iTunes today. And sorry, I had to get that plug in. But, the Yankees really this next week is going to determine where that thing is. And I think that even though I just made the case that we've seen teams win on the road in the past, I think 2017 you can put that win, obviously the Brett Gardner home run and all this stuff in the bed, Luis Severino start. To me, the thing that really got that team jump started was that crowd. After they walked off the field, losing after the top of the first inning, it did not look good. The Yankee fans cheered as if their team was ahead. The Yankee fans went ballistic just to see this team come to bat and see the fight that the New York Yankees had. And to me, if they get that kind of rowdy crowd, and that Yankee crowd last year was just so happy to see, because that was like the magic carpet ride last year. Nobody expected that Yankee team to go as far as they did. I mean, a lot of people said at the beginning of the season they didn't think the Yankees were going to be 500, which is crazy to me. But people actually said it, and it wasn't looked at as insane. But when you really look at the landscape of the next week, you got 4 games against Tampa Bay. Now you got lucky because I believe the Yankees miss Snell in his last start. The guy won his 21st game today, I believe, Tampa Bay franchise record. So he should win the Cy Young. I mean, come on. You're going to give me Chris Sale? The guy's thrown like 30 more innings than him. Chris Sale hasn't pitched at all in the last 2 months, and I love the guy. But Snell is the Cy Young Award winner, or should be. And Jacob DeGrom should be on the other side. But we'll get to that in a couple of minutes. But as for the Yankees, you get 4 against these guys this week. Tampa Bay, a good team. It's not going to be easy. And then you get 3 against the Boston Red Sox. And the Boston Red Sox would do anything to hurt the Yankees' odds during what basically is a tune-up for their ALDS series, whoever that may be against. Yankees, Oakland, whatever it turns out to be. But they're going to be playing the wild card team, and that team's going to be ready to go. And if they have the chance to beat the Yankees up a little bit, they'll take every opportunity to do that. And even if that means sending the Yankees out to Oakland, because what would be better for the Red Sox? Now, they beat them up this weekend in Fenway, or next weekend in Fenway it is actually. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday they beat them up there. Yankees end up having to play in Oakland for the wild card game. Then they start the ALDS a day or two later after having to go out to Oakland, after having to win that game. I mean, you never know. But teams can carry over momentum like nobody's business, to be quite honest. But you get those miles on you. You get a little tired. You already have a full 162 game season under your belt. So a lot of these guys are tired. So the more miles they travel, the more everything. Boston's going to have every incentive to play hard this weekend. Now they're not going to spoil their rotation, their playoff rotation. They're going to make sure that their roster is primed and ready to go for whatever the date, October 5th, 6th, whatever the date is of Game 1 of their division series. But that team is going to be primed and ready to go. So if you're the Yankees, this is a very meaningful week. You don't want to go anywhere. You want to come into this series, whatever it is, that series against the Red Sox, if you can, make it mean nothing. That's going to be tough. We all know that. Rays aren't going anywhere. They're a tough team. They could win 90 games this year. That's crazy. Kevin Cash, their manager, former catcher, should win the American League Manager of the Year award. But I don't know. I can see them giving it to Alex Cora. I mean, team has 105 plus wins. Really can't argue against that. As a matter of fact, right now, the Alex Cora-led Red Sox are going for their 106th win tonight, as they play on ESPN right now. If you want to check that out, against the Cleveland Indians. A fantastic stat with the Cleveland Indians, too, earlier this week, and congratulations to them. They'll be making the playoffs for, I believe, the third straight year. The Cleveland Indians now have 4 starters that have 200-plus strikeouts. First time it's ever happened in Major League history. I was stunned when I heard that. But then you really think about it, it kind of makes sense, because as many innings as the guys in the old days threw, the one thing you have to remember is that strikeouts, were seen as the worst thing that could happen. Today, people don't care about strikeouts. Strikeouts are, kind of ignored to a larger extent today. But back then, it was a lot harder to strike out 200 batters in a year. Now this is one of these where we're on a stretch right now where the most strikeouts in Major League history for a season record has been set and broken every year for, I believe, the last 10 or so years. Might even be 12 years, more than that. But, every single year is the record for most strikeouts. So strikeouts are through the roof. I'm not saying that, it's a meaningless accomplishment. I think it's actually quite impressive. But when you really sit back and think about it in the scope of the history of the game, that's not as, crazy as you would think. Strikeouts are through the roof right now. You got hard-throwing pitchers, 4 very good ones on the Cleveland Indians, and they finally were the first team to have 4 starters with 200 strikeouts apiece. So you got to hand it to them, and that's pretty impressive too, keeping pitchers like that healthy in this day and age. Where if you're a Met fan, or even a Yankee fan this year, not necessarily just pitchers, but you've seen how injuries can devastate a team. To keep those guys healthy, all the luck in the world to them on that one. But that's my little Indians tidbit for the day. But to get back to the Yankees, though, they just got to take care of their business this week. They got to make sure that they win the games they need to win. Right now, you're up to 95 wins. You've got 7 games left. If you win 99, I think you did your job. If you win 100, that's gravy. But if you win 99, and that's not good enough to get home field, then the A's just went on a tear. And there's nothing you can do about it. But if, I think if the Yankees do their job, they win 99 games, that will be it. They'll have home field wrapped up. And then, you don't want to forget about Oakland. But I think we're heading towards a Yankees Red Sox playoff series for the first time since 2004. And we all know what happened then. But, to be honest, the 2003 and 2004 American League Championship Series are 2 of the most fun championship series in the history of baseball. So to be getting a little bit of piece of that, to be reawakening that Yankees and Red Sox not dynasty, but rivalry that has been going on ever since the great Bambino was traded there just about 100 years ago. It's good to see. It was fun in the late 90s when it got brought back up with Pedro and everything, and it was fun in the early 2000s when you had those back-to-back championship series, and it's going to be fun this year, but the Yankees have to do their part because the Red Sox are already there. The Yankees got to win their games. The Yankees got to make sure that they're ready to go. And this week is going to mean a lot. It's 6 road games. 7 road games. 4 in Tampa Bay, 3 in Boston. Take care of your business. Get the job done. And you can't have another bullpen implosion like you did today. And you can't have, this is a big reason why a lot of, you're talking about this week is where you're going to be setting who is the guy to start that wild card game for your pitching wise. Right now you're going to be setting your rotation, figuring out what guy you want in that spot. The guy I want in that spot right now is Masahiro Tanaka, which also means that you're probably going to have the backup catching him. You're probably going to be having Gary Sanchez on the bench. Unfortunately, Gary Sanchez is a very talented man, very talented baseball player, and he's gonna be getting his chance in the future. And if the Yankees win this game, he'll be starting his share of playoff games, no doubt about it. But in a one-game playoff, you're gonna go for the backup. You're gonna want to shy away from, especially with Tanaka, where he's got that bite on his pitches, jump into the dirt. They can really do a lot of damage if you don't have a good defensive catcher back there. And as much as I like Sanchez's arm, it's kind of stops outside of that, defensively at least. And don't give up on Sanchez if you're a Yankee fan. I know you're annoyed this year. I know he's gotten under your skin most likely, but give him time. This year is a big learning experience for him, and if you ask me, I would not be surprised to see a career season out of him next year. And yes, a career season means that he's going to hit more than 33 home runs. So, let's see what he does. That's what I expect out of him. He's a world-class talent, and so that's what we got on the Yankees right now. It's pretty much black and white right in front of you. All you need to know is win your games and you're good. Don't win your games and you're probably going to Oakland, because the A's just keep winning. They went 21-3 the other day. They just came up short of a sweep with Minnesota this weekend. So, a lot on their plate. No doubt about it. And with that, I'd like to switch right over to the crosstown rival of the New York Yankees, and that's the New York Mets. As the Mets won today 8-6. Disappointing start from Steven Matz. This is his second to last start of the year. I believe he'll be starting some point over the weekend against the Florida Marlins. Actually, he might even be the guy that's tabbed to start the game that David Wright and Jose Reyes start on Saturday, which is already sold out, and the ticket prices are through the roof. And you can understand that. There's a lot of nostalgia going on. A lot of Met fans, thinking about one of the guy that's probably the best produced player, the best everyday player the Mets have ever produced, other than Darryl Strawberry. I mean, Straw is really the only other guy. When you think about all the other boppers the Mets have had, they picked up Howard Johnson from the Detroit Tigers. They, traded for Piazza from the Marlins. They, there's a lot of guys that, Carlos Delgado was a big bopper for them. Keith Hernandez, they traded for I know he wasn't a home run guy, but he's a great hitter. So all the other guys, the big offensive names the Mets have really brought in, even Bobby Bowe, when he was here for a year or two, the guy did have a 34 home run year. All those guys were signed as free agents or traded for and everything like that. But when you look at the short names of great offensive talents the Mets have produced, David Wright's name is going to be right at the top of that list, right next to, guys like Lee Mazzilli, who was very good here, not for as long as either Straw or David Wright, but Wright's name is going to be in that conversation. So, if you get sick of hearing about David Wright, or if you're already sick of hearing about David Wright, I get it, but just whatever, bite your tongue. The guy's going to be gone in 6 games. I respect David Wright for leaving. I believe he left $27 million on the table to call it a career. It's been a big disappointment, that contract, ever since he signed it. He had that big year in 2012 where he looked like the old David Wright again. And 2013 he suffered that back injury, and then 2014 you knew something was wrong because David Wright's hitting .260 with 8 home runs in 130 games. What the heck is going on? So, you knew something was up. I'm glad that he got to go on that World Series run in 2015. Although what a lot of people neglect to mention when they bring that up is how he threw the ball away in Game 1. But the people who do bring that up also neglect to mention that he had a big hit in L.A. in the LDS, game-winning hit in, I believe it was either Game 1 or Game 2 it might have been. I forget, but David Wright had a big hit there, base hit right up the middle, and, take the good with the bad. There's not much you can do. He's calling it a career. I tip my cap to David Wright. He's one of my favorite players that I've ever seen play. and he's one of the only people that wore a Met uniform his entire career, from beginning to end. And I've heard people run down his numbers and say that this and that. Well, he leads in every single offensive category except for home runs. He set the record in every single thing, Mets-wise. So, you know what? Retire his number. Put 5 up at the rafters. To be honest, it probably should be up there already for Davy Johnson already anyway. So, just put it up. Maybe throw up 8 and 17 too, because that'd be kind of nice. But other than that, I really have no problem with what they're going to do for David Wright. It's going to be fun to see him out there in a uniform again. And I just hope that we get 1 or 2 nice feel-good moments from David this week. He'll probably pinch hit before he's supposed to start on Saturday the 29th, so they'll probably pinch hit for him. And he'll probably pinch hit earlier that week. And possibly even the day after that start on the last day of the season on September 30th. But that's pretty much it on David Wright. As I'm just happy that we're finally getting to know what the deal is with him, and we're getting this story wrapped up with a nice bow after so long of not knowing what's going on with this guy. But right before I end talking about the Mets here, I do have to discuss the best pitcher in baseball today. His name is Jacob DeGrom. You can't argue with that. The guy has the best ERA in baseball by a mile. There's also a stat out there that if the Mets, you can't even understand it, but if the Mets scored 3 runs in every one of Jacob DeGrom's starts this year, he'd be 30-2. That's how good he's been. He sets major league records every time he takes the mound. I think it's 28 consecutive quality starts this guy is thrown right now. Can we not have people running down this guy's numbers anymore? Oh, it's a different era. Oh, it's this and that. You could say it's a different era. Jacob DeGrom has 259 strikeouts right now. If you want to compare everything, let's compare his season to Doc Gooden's in 1985. Doc Gooden was incredible. 24-4, 1.53 ERA, 268 strikeouts. The guy had one of the greatest single pitching seasons in the history of baseball. Jacob DeGrom, 9-9 with a 1.77 ERA. He's got 1 start left, and he's got 259 strikeouts. So if he strikes out 9 batters in his next start, he's going to tie. If he strikes out 10, he'll pass Doc Gooden's strikeout total from 1985. That's pretty freaking impressive, considering what Gooden looked like that year. Gooden was putting up double-digit strikeout games every single time out. And for Jacob DeGrom to surpass that strikeout total, the guy is a sneeze away from a 300 strikeout season. He's not going to break the all-time record. The all-time Met record for strikeouts in a year is 289, which Tom Seaver did in 1971, I believe. Might have been a year or two after that, but I believe it was 71. That's the year where Seaver had a ridiculous season. And with Jacob DeGrom, the guy goes out there, he's breaking records every time out. Obviously the guys 30, 40, 50 years ago went deeper into games. It's a different game. It's a completely different game now. It's played under a completely different set of rules for the most part. And to compare DeGrom's season to guys like that, and in a lot of cases it's apples to oranges, but that's what you have to go on. That's baseball, comparing this to history. And when you compare it historically to every other season in Major League history, for the sheer consistency that DeGrom has shown this year, it's unmatched. Unmatched consistency. Now, I stole that line, actually, from Mickey Callaway, and he hit the nail on the head. It's unmatched consistency. You see Jacob DeGrom going out there, quality starts every time out. Now, I know quality start could also be 6 innings, 3 runs, which is a 4.50 ERA. And everybody says, this and that, and they throw the flags up. Well, guess what? If DeGrom was going out there and having 6 innings, 3 runs every time out, he'd have a 4.50 ERA. But he doesn't. He has a 1.77 ERA. The guy threw 7 innings, 1 run last time. You'd think, oh, maybe his ERA went down a good amount. No, his ERA went from 1.78 to 1.77. That's how good he is, that even when you have a good outing like that, his ERA is not dropping all that much. Unless he's going out there putting up zeros, that ERA is not coming down all that much. And, I just love what DeGrom's done. He didn't shy away from Boston last weekend. He went out there, 7 innings, 3 runs, 12 strikeouts, took on the best team in baseball. And then he went out against the Nationals this week, who have an explosive offense. Don't count the Nationals out. Remember, the Nationals dropped 24 runs in the Mets early this year. I know they've gone through some changes since then, but the Nationals still have a pretty darn good offense, no doubt about it. And DeGrom went out there, beat them 4-2. Had the 2 top guys in the bullpen, DeGrom, Lugo, and Gesellman, to shut it down. And Jacob DeGrom 9-9. He's going to be starting Wednesday against Atlanta. Let's just hope that he gets his 10th win, and they don't have to stretch him. Although there are lingering rumors out there. Every time I hear it brought up, though, it seems less and less plausible. But there are rumors that Jacob DeGrom could be starting on 3 days rest on the final day of the season against the Florida Marlins. I'd love to see it. As a matter of fact, if he does, I might pay to see it, and I might go down and check that game out on the 30th at Citi Field. I usually do like going to those games the last day of the season with my uncle and my cousins anyway. We usually have a good time. But if DeGrom's going out there, I'd love to see that. His last game of the year, his historic season, it would really just be fantastic to see him cap the season out and just keep adding to all the records that he's set. But more than likely, Wednesday against Atlanta will be his final time on the mound this season. And it's just, this season, it doesn't seem as magical as that Dickey 2012 season, where it seemed every time the guy was going out, he was getting a win and throwing 8 innings and allowing a run or something along those lines. But I think that's only because of the wins. But in reality, he's pitched so much better than Dickey did that season that it's really a crime that this team has barely been able to get this guy 10 wins. And if they do get him to 10 wins, it'll be by the skin of their teeth. Just barely. It'll be in potentially what could be his last start of the season. 10 wins. This is a guy who should have had 10 wins at the All-Star break if he had a team that had, even a semblance of someone running this organization with a clue. So, just keep that in perspective. If you want to see a guy continue to pitch one of the best campaigns you've ever seen in your entire life, check out Jacob DeGrom in his last start, possibly, this Wednesday night. And, be amazed. Be amazed. It's history. It's history. He could go out there and have another quality start and keep it going. Tip your cap Jacob DeGrom, because you might not see anything like this ever again, especially if you're a Met fan. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, with that, I'm going to take my first break of the day right here on Sports Talk 1240. When we get back, we'll be doing all football and a little bit of this day in sports history. We'll catch you on the other side. Thanks for listening.
Country Foot Care, official podiatrists of the New York Lizard, have been delivering state-of-the-art foot care with good old-fashioned caring to Long Island residents for over 30 years. Specialists in sports medicine and foot injuries, Country Foot Care can be reached at 516-741-FEET or online at countryfootcare.com.
Want to advertise your business on SportsTalk 1240? Place an ad on SportsTalk1240.com and run a radio commercial during the show every Sunday night here on AM 1240 WGBB. Our rates are very affordable. We'll even produce a radio commercial for you. Just head over to SportsTalk1240.com You're on fill out the contact us form. And let us start promoting your business today.
I heard you mention the name. Sounds good.
Unflippable, unflappable, unleakable. The Gusbuster is the only umbrella that won't flip inside out, rip, tear, or leak. Capable of withstanding winds over 55 miles per hour. All of our umbrellas are constructed of the finest quality materials and backed by a limited lifetime guarantee. What are you waiting for? Visit Gusbuster.com and get your Gusbuster today. Stay connected to Sports Talk 1240 by following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Sports Talk 1240.
You're listening to Sports Talk 1240, broadcasting every Sunday night beginning at 8 p.m. right here on Long Island's AM 1240 WGBB, the station that serves your community. And now, back to the show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Sports Talk 1240. I am your host, Rob Cramer, and this is This Day in Sports History. September 23rd, 1983, Steve Carlton goes 8 innings and strikes out 12 batters as the Phillies beat the Cardinals 6-2 in St. Louis, earning Carlton his 15th victory of the season and making him the 16th pitcher all-time to win 300 games in Major League history. A year later, on September 23rd, 1984, 2018 Hall of Fame inductee Jack Morris defeats the Yankees 4-1 in Detroit. In doing so, the Tigers win their 100th game of the season, making manager Sparky Lyle the first man to win 100 games in a season in both leagues. He did so with the Cincinnati Reds twice in the 1970s. September 23rd, 1988. In the first game of a doubleheader in Milwaukee, Oakland A's outfielder Jose Canseco hits a home run and steals a base, becoming the first player to ever have at least 40 home runs and 40 stolen bases in the same season, now known as a 40-40 season. September 23rd, 1992, Mano Rayom becomes the first woman to appear in an NHL exhibition game playing goalie for the expansion Tampa Bay Lightning, giving up 2 goals on 9 shots in one period in a preseason loss to the St. Louis Blues. And finally, on September 23rd, 1997, Seattle Mariners outfielder Jay Buhner hits a 3-run homer in the first inning off California Angels pitcher Alan Watson. Not only was this his 40th home run of the year, but the 258th and Major League record-breaking home run for a team in a single season. The 97 Seattle Mariners would go on to hit 264 home runs that year, a record that still stands and the 2018 Yankees are trying to overtake. After not homering today, the Yankees stand at 251, 13 behind the record, with 7 games left to play. So if they hit out 2 a game for the next 7 games, we'll have a new record holder. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, and now we got this word from BetDSI. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, and now it's that great time of the year again where football season is upon us. Week 3 in the NFL season is nearly complete, and have you won big yet? I have, because I went to BetDSI.com. BetDSI.com is an A-plus rated sports book, and it's been around since 1998. Over the last 20 years, they've built an impeccable reputation for great service and fast payment, combined with an excellent mobile interface so you can play, win, and get paid anywhere, anytime. If you sign up for a new account today and use my promo code COFFEE100, that's COFFEE 100, coffee for my podcast, Coffee with Cramer, you can get double your money up to $500 deposit. So if you deposit $500, they'll match it, boom, you got $1,000 in your account. I've been having a blast doing picks on my podcast, and I'll do that right here on Sports Talk 1240 as well, where I'll give you my Monday night lock here every time that I'm here on this program. And This week, BetDSI.com has the Steelers-Buccaneers Monday night game in Tampa Bay as a pick'em. So with that in mind, I'm going to pick the Steelers. I think the Steelers are going to come out flying, even though the Bucs are probably being a little disrespected still, considering they have the top passer and top receiver in the league right now statistically. But I still think Pittsburgh comes away with the victory in Tampa Bay tomorrow night. Don't forget that BetDSI doesn't only offer you the best NFL odds, but NCAA, MLB, NBA, NHL, boxing, UFC, and more. Don't stand on the sideline. Just check them out at betdsi.com. That's BETDSI.com. And use our promo code COFFEE100 to double your bankroll today. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sticking around here on Sports Talk 1240. You heard right there, I picked the Pittsburgh Steelers tomorrow night on Monday Night Football, and I've been having, a blast watching these games. If you checked out any of the games today, man, there was so, I want to start with the Giants, but if you watched that Atlanta Falcons and New Orleans Saints game, that was a crazy game. It seems it's the third straight week we've had an amazing overtime game here in the NFL, and it's just a lot of fun. I'm glad this one didn't end in a tie, but definitely a lot of fun. Very happy that it worked out that way, and I'm also happy because I got Matt Ryan in my fantasy team. And he scored me 40 points today, so that was a lot of fun. All right, and with that, let's get to the New York Giants real quick. As the New York Giants, man, they went out there and played a great game today. Great game today. If you're a Giants fan, you've got to be proud of this team. Pat Shurmur did what I think a lot of Giants fans, and myself included, not being a Giant fan but being an observer of the Giants, I didn't think that he was going to have the guts to bench Eric Flowers today, and I didn't think he was going to have the rest of the season. I thought we'd be seeing Eric Flowers get trotted out there on a weekly basis and fail on a weekly basis. But you know what? They went out there and they showed they had some guts. They showed that if you're going to underperform, they're not going to let you out here. They're not going to take their time. They're not going to put you out there and let you put their season in jeopardy. And so what did they do? They put him on the bench. They started back up Chad Wheeler. And just a terrific move. Now, do I think, it had that big of an impact that if they start Eric Flowers today, they lose? I don't think it's that big of an impact, but I think there's a lot of things behind there. If you're Eli Manning and you can't trust your right tackle, are you ever going to go over to that side? Are you ever going to take your eye off that guy? You're always going to be, you're going to have those happy feet, as they say. Especially when you're not sure that if you're going to get popped out of the corner of your eye. So, if I'm Eli Manning, I feel like my worries were put to rest a little bit this week. The offensive line looked a lot better. There was a lot of questions surrounding the offensive line coming into this game, not only because of Eric Flowers, but their starting center last week suffered a broken leg and ankle in that ugly loss to the Dallas Cowboys, and that injury was, or that loss was almost as ugly as that injury was, as the Giants dropped to 0-2, but they turned it around today. They improved, winning 27-22 at Houston, dropped the Texans to 0-3. Like I said, they improved the Giants to 1-2. Pat Shurmur gets his first win as head coach. Eli Manning shredded this defense. I don't think we're going to be hearing complaining about Eli Manning from Giants fans, at least for the next week or two, because he went 25 of 29 today, just under 300 yards, threw 2 touchdowns, looked like a championship caliber quarterback out there. It was very impressive to see after the, slightly inaccurate and slightly underconfident Eli Manning of the last 2 games. So that was very good to see. Saquon Barkley really had a very nice game, making those first tacklers miss. 17 carries, 82 yards, and a touchdown. You know, getting that offensive line right behind him was big. You know, I'm sure Giants fans are thrilled that the defense looked much better. Aside from that last-second touchdown they scored, where they made a 27-15 game, 27-22. Literally, I believe there was 2 or 3 seconds left in the clock when that happened. So the Giants defense really did their job. If you hold that team, you know, with Deshaun Watson, who, you know, we saw what he could do last year. I think we, you know, maybe the 0-3 and the underperforming, you know, it's not all on him, but I think we might be seeing a little bit of the remnants of his injury from last year. I think we might be seeing a little bit of him starting to get back into game shape. You know, you'd think he only had a couple of games in the preseason, and he never played a full game. So it'll be interesting to see how he pans out from here on out. I know there's a lot of people who picked him in fantasy who are probably a little discouraged so far, mostly with his interceptions, because, to be honest, he went out there and he threw over 300 yards today against the Giants, and I know a lot of it was because his running game was kind of non-existent today, but, you know, you'd think that a guy who threw 350-plus yards today would be getting a lot more, you know, pats in the back than he is. But when you're 0-3 and you lost, you know, there's nothing you can do. That's you got to take that one on the chin. And you know, I think history might have been on the Giants' side today too, because the Giants haven't lost to the Texans since the Houston Texans' inaugural season in 2002. Giants are now 4-1 all time against the Texans, winning their last 4. These teams hadn't played since 2014, a game which the Giants won 31-17. So this was their first game in quite some time. But you know, the Giants D stood up to the test today, and now they did it this week against the Houston Texans. It's going to be jacked up to the next level next week. Next week now, you as a you know, you really have to understand the scope of what you're getting yourselves into next week, because you're facing the New Orleans Saints next week, and you got a Hall of Famer Drew Brees playing at a Hall of Fame level, no doubt about it, as he always does. You've got great playmakers on that team like Adrian Peterson, who's turned back the clock, man. Is it 2009 right now? Where did this Adrian Peterson come from? Fantastic. He had a rough week too, but so far 2 out of his 3 weeks have been fantastic. It's been interesting to see him thrown into that with all these playmakers. You know, another guy who's still hanging around. I remember him being a punt returner for Ohio State all those years ago, but Ted Ginn Jr. is still hanging around, and it's just it's a lot of fun to see what this New Orleans Saints team can do when they have the ball on offense. Seeing them on defense is a little ugly today. As I mentioned, they won today 43-37, but that was a high-octane game, no doubt about it. And, you know, now the Giants and the Saints will fight it out next week. And, you know, to be honest, the recent history against this team points to this game being one hell of a game. As 2 years ago, in early 2016, in McAdoo's first year, the Giants edged out a 16-13 win, you know, against New Orleans, and that's a very big game for them, especially when the defense really must have kicked into gear on that one. And not only that, but the 4 games before that, at least one team scored 48 points in all the matchups in the last 4 before that. So that also included a game at MetLife in 2015. Oh no, it was actually at the Superdome in 2015, where the Giants just missed, came back. They just came up short. A 21-point fourth quarter, as the Saints, get this, outlasted the Giants 52-49 at the Superdome. So, you know, if you're expecting this to be a low-scoring affair, change your expectations, because this is probably going to be. If you're the Giants, be happy you scored 27 today. They didn't hit 30, but you're gonna. I think if you're gonna win this game next week, you're gonna have to score between 24 and 31 points. Browns defense did a good job earlier this year, holding the Saints to 21 points. I believe it was a 21-18 win, but that's you're not going to hold that team to that low points too many times, especially when they're coming off a 43-point affair this week. They scored 48 in week 1, I believe, and in a real shootout with the Buccaneers and Ryan Fitzpatrick and all these guys having crazy games. But right now, I think that we're seeing a lot of positives from the Giants. Landon Collins looked very good today. Odell Beckham had another 100-yard game. They like I said, their defense really stepped up to the plate, and it's if you're a Giant fan right now for week 3 for a day, and at least for a few days this week, you can puff your chest out. You can be happy. You can say to yourself, maybe the first 2 games of this season were an aberration, and just the growing pains of a team learning under a new coach and coming together and figuring out what they have to do to win. And maybe one of those things was Pat Shurmur realizing that Eric Flowers is just not dependable. Maybe one of those things was Pat Shurmur realizing that addressing a need like that could seem so insignificant. Yeah, okay, you think it's going to affect a good amount of the play, but do you think it's going to inspire a locker room when you know there's a guy on your offensive line you can't depend on? Do you think it's going to get all the guys pointing in the same direction when you have another guy that every time that you have to rely on him, that he's just unreliable? Well, I think that means a lot. And if this Chad Wheeler or maybe another guy that picked up off, you never know. If this is the end of Eric Flowers, maybe they cut him. To be honest, if it was me, I probably would have cut him in the offseason when he wasn't showing up for mini camps and stuff like that. And that said a lot to me. So Eric Flowers is a malcontent, and do what you have to do. It's not for the. If you're Pat Shurmur and you're the New York Giants, you got to do what's best for the New York Giants team, not Eric Flowers, the player. And I think that's pretty obvious. And with that, we'll take a quick look at the New York Jets, who, that's unfortunately the team I root for. I wanted to take as long as possible to get to this game, because that was pretty ugly on Thursday night. As we all know, the Jets lost to the Browns 21-17 in Cleveland. The first win for the Browns since 12/24/16. That would be Christmas Eve 2016. Yep, Browns hadn't almost won in 2 years, but the Jets said, hey, Cleveland, I know we're winning 14-0, but take the game. Just take the game. We don't want to win it. Tyrod Taylor looked awful at the beginning. He got hurt. I believe it was 4-14. It was just really terrible. The Jet defense was swarming, seemingly. And then it all came piling down when the number 1 overall pick, the guy who, I haven't been convinced of. I never thought that Baker Mayfield, especially what I saw in preseason, and, there's a lot of things about Baker Mayfield that scare me. The quarterback Heisman winners never really translate into the NFL. There were a lot of things that scared me about him, the competition he was up against at Oklahoma. But, to be honest, he's gone out there and he has, at least in this one game, silenced his critics. Silenced me, no doubt about that. He made me shut up. As, he came out 17-21, didn't turn the ball over, led his team on a field goal drive to cut the deficit to 14-3 at halftime. And then after that, it was pretty much just all Cleveland. The Jets went down. They managed to kick 1 field goal in the second half, and the Browns would just score 18 points. They'd run past them like the Jets were standing still. And don't sleep on the Cleveland Browns. I know this might just sound like a Jet fan trying to soften the blow of the monumental loss his team took on Thursday night, and to an extent it might be. But don't be surprised. Don't sleep on the Cleveland Browns. They are a good team. They have a lot of talent. I'm not saying they're going to the playoffs this year, but don't be surprised if there's 4 or 5 other teams looking at themselves in the mirror this year saying, "Wow, we lost to the Cleveland Browns," because they're learning. And who knows, they might need a new coach. They might need a couple of more players. They might need a few things, but they've been patient. Hugh Jackson has seemingly had the patience of a saint, and I just got to tip my cap to the Cleveland Browns. I can sit here and be angry. I can sit here and kick and scream, but I got that out of my system on Thursday. And what are you gonna do? It's a tough loss. It's a season where the Jets are probably en route to another 5-11 year, if they're lucky. And who would have thought they'd be saying that after the big win and how awesome everything looked from green and white perspective on opening night, a 48-17 to win, 48-17 win in Detroit. But Sam Darnold back down to earth the other day, 15 of 31, 169 yards, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns, and he looked bad, man. Well, to be honest, actually, that's a false statement. He didn't look bad. The offensive calling, the offensive game plan looked bad. They didn't take any chances downfield. There was no point in this game where you felt that they were going to take a shot of over 15, 20 yards and make it. And the only time that they were able to move the ball through the air, to me, it seemed like when they were doing those little Quincy and Nunwas, who I'm a big Quincy and Nunwa fan. The guy is a heck of a player, a heck of a blocker, and tough receiver too, which you need. And the only time they would do it is when Curse was throwing the blocks behind the line of scrimmage, and Nunwa would get past there, little screens plays like that. But other than that, I didn't see much creativity from Jeremy Bates. I'm not impressed with Jeremy Bates as a coordinator so far. There have been times where I said to myself, "Oh, I think that's an interesting little take on it." But then he goes out there and they run the ball 8 times in the first half. They just look bad. They look terrible, and very disappointing. Very disappointing, no doubt about it. Don't try to sell me the whole 3 games in 11 days angle. I get it. It's a factor, but it's not an excuse. Cleveland had 3 games in 12 days, so it's not like they were that far off. It was a bad game for everyone around. To me, it was a typical Todd Bowles letdown type win. Not that they were coming off a big win or anything, but, I think me as a Jet fan, and I think a lot of Jet fans felt this way, after the egg they laid against Miami on the home opener, I kind of thought they were going to come out flying in Cleveland. They were disrespected. They were, from their point of view, the 3-point road underdogs against a team who hasn't won in almost 2 full years. So, you'd think they had their nose a little out of joint at the beginning of the game. You'd think they'd have a chip on their shoulder, which it came out like they did. They were up 14-0, and really after Isaiah Crowell pulled that whole wiping of the butt with the football angle, that it all kind of came down after it. I gotta say, I did have a laugh. He did kind of look like a bit of a jerk out there, but I got a kick out of it. And but I do appreciate that Todd Bowles said that they don't approve that kind of stuff, and that penalty after that really hurt them. No doubt about it, it hurt them, because they ended up kicking it from from a lot closer, and it just it really set them up on that next drive. And there's a couple of bad plays like that. You've got a couple of false starts that really screwed them up. A couple of really bad defensive penalties. So that's the call of a Todd Bowles team so far. So until I see otherwise, because to be quite honest, I haven't seen anything otherwise that since Week 17 or Week 16 in 2015, because since week 17 of that year, this team hasn't played a meaningful game. When they choked in Buffalo and lost that game, I believe it was 24-17, just a terrible game. Ryan Fitzpatrick looks good now, but he flushed that season down the toilet in that game. A couple of end zone interceptions. And since that day, they're 11-25 since then. Yet Todd Bowles just got a contract extension in the offseason, which I hope I'm wrong. But, actually, I hope I'm right if they're good this year, but I don't expect them to be. So I hope I'm wrong when I say that I think that Todd Bowles gets next season no matter what. 5-11, 4-12, anything outside of 1-15, 2-4, something like that, that could get him fired. But they just gave him an extension in this offseason. This past offseason, he just got it. So they're going to let him have 1 year, which would have been his final year on the contract anyway. This is the 4th year he's been here. He signed a 4-year deal when he came in, and they just gave him a 2-year extension. So he's signed through 2020. So he's getting paid. So they're not getting rid of him. So you can dream all you want, unless they have a monumentally McAdoo type bad season. We're going to be seeing Todd Bowles out there. Let's just hope that it's not him. Let's just hope it's, a combination of things. But I'm not impressed with Todd after 4 years. I was after 15 games in his first season, but I've seen 36 bad ones since then. And fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Another question I have right before, as we get near the end here, where's that ball hawk defense gone? Last 2 weeks, they haven't had an interception. They haven't had anything. They've had a couple of forced fumbles, which I've liked, but no interceptions, nothing like that, nothing close. So the Jets got to work on that. They play the Jags next week now. They get a 10-day layoff because the Thursday night games. They'll be playing the Jags. Don't forget, they beat the Jags last year, 28-23 at MetLife. So the Jets did win the last outing. They've actually won the last 4 dating back to 2011. Last time the Jags beat the Jets was 2009. So I guess we'll see where we go from there. If the Jets want to compete, you got to win this game. Otherwise, you're probably looking at another high draft pick next season, which with their cap room also, if you have the ability to be patient, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But ladies and gentlemen, with that, we're getting to the end of the show here. I'd like to thank you again for joining me here on Sports Talk 1240. I'm your host, Rob Cramer. Coming up in the next hour is Dr. Rob Fried. And please stay tuned and check him out. He always does a great program. You can check me out on Twitter at Coffee with Kramer. Well, that's my podcast, actually. COFFEEW Kramer, CRAMER. You can check me out on my personal Twitter at Kramer New York. That's at CRAMERNY. And check out all my podcasts on iTunes and everything else like that. Thanks for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great night.
Okay, you going?
Oh, yeah. Come on